Hey guys, Zen here, welcome back to the channel, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing a day one tier list. But before I do that, I don't typically like to do this. However, I've had a really good day with Pokemon Pocket, so I want to flex just a little bit. First off, check this out. Your boy was able to complete the full set with, yes, max spending, but also finishing all the solo missions and leveraging the Wonder Picks. I say this over and over again, every set, do not skip your Wonder Picks. Also, if you see an EX Pokemon, just choose the same spot. 9 times out of 10, I feel like it's always in the same spot. Now, why is that important? Well, because I've been cooking up a deck list for pretty much every single thing you're going to see in today's tier list. So I'm coming from a spot of experience, so to say, of playing these decks, and I'm giving you my honest day one impressions of what I think, because I've been so lucky enough to build a deck for everything we're going to be talking about today. And if you want to see those decks in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Now, with that being said, let's get started with the first Pokemon deck card list on today's tier list, and that's going to be Jolteon. We're going to have the card in the corner here so you can read it, but Jolteon, honestly, it's a little unclear for me. I don't want to say don't, just because for 1 energy, dealing 60 damage is pretty good. It's a non-EX, but then every turn after that, it just pretty much doesn't do anything. There are some certain situations where, say, you can lose your Eevee and your Jolteon, maybe old lady them back to evolve again, so you don't even need 2 copies in your deck. I just, as of right now, it's a bit lackluster, but I'm not going to put it in the don't category. Next up is the Alcremie Sweets Overload, aka Sweets Relay, and this thing is insane. It's insane because it turns out there are multiple Pokemon in this set that revolve around this sort of gimmick. For example, let me show you 2 that I think are pretty interesting. We have Vanillite here that evolves into, I believe, Vanillish, and they both have different damage. So this, for 1 energy, could potentially do up to 50 damage, and it has 80 HP. But the one that I find very fascinating, that I think I'm really a fan of, that I'm going to build a deck around, is Appleton. Appleton with Sweet Relay can do up to 70 damage, which is crazy. So if you go with a 90 HP Leaf Cape, you're up to 120 for stage 1, dealing 70 damage. And by that time, bringing them down so low, you can just bring in your Alcremie and finish them off with Sweets Overload. Honestly, I think this is a very promising deck list. Next up is Togedemaru. I'm going to put him in unclear. It's cool that it synergizes with Sophocles, but other than that, I genuinely don't know if you're going to play this. With Sophocles, you could technically do up to 90 damage if it takes damage, right? So then the following turn, you could do up to 90, but it's a very situational card. So again, I'm going to put in the unclear territory, and the tier list, like, I'm really trying to be forward thinking, if you will, to see what I'm really going to put in the meta. I'm going to put in the promising, and then which ones are the ones that I'm just like, yo, I don't think anyone's really going to play this other than maybe just to troll or have fun. I could be wrong. I'm always open to changing my opinions, guys. Next up is Leafeon, and as much as I do want to put this in meta, I think a lot of people will try to play this card. I think it's just promising. Same as the Sweets Relay. Like, I think a lot of people are going to play it. I just don't think it's going to dominate as much as people would like it to dominate, right? Same thing with the next card, which is Serena right here. I'm going to put this in promising, and I said this in my other video. If you want a video where I'm reviewing every single card and giving you my honest feedbacks on every single card, not just the idea, the deck, archetypes and whatnot, watch that video. But I think this Serena is better than the other one because it also works with Mallow, and for 1 energy, guarantees the 50 damage and guarantees to remove a card from your opponent's hand and send it back to their deck list. So let's say you play this with other cards, your opponent knocks out 2 of your Pokemon. Guess what? You can Mars them. They're down to 1 card. Serena comes in, hits them with this move, and now they have 0 cards in their hand. It's kind of mean, but listen, like I said, promising. That is a spicy tech right there. All right, next up is probably our first meta card, and that's going to be Flareon. Now, the reason I'm putting this Flareon by itself, because you could run it with the Flareon EX, which I guess we can just put this up here as well. We'll switch between cards so you can see what I'm talking about. But this Flareon for right now, I think is top tier meta because it's revitalizing other fire types. I was testing this out with Crimson Zard, I was testing it out with Incineroar. Okay, this thing is insane. Just the stage 1 110 HP Flareon is incredibly strong, and I understand Moltres might be a better pick for ramping, but this is a guaranteed 1. It's a stage 1, not a basic, but it's also not an EX. I'm a huge fan of this non-EX Flareon, but now let's talk about the EX Flareon. This thing is busted. 130 damage, potentially 150 with red, potentially 150 with 2 EV bags, potentially 170 with 2 EV bags and a red. Like, it's pretty busted. It ramps itself. It loses 2 energy, but it also ramps itself. It can work with things like Steam Zard decks, a Charizard decks, Infernape decks. It can work with so many decks with other cards like Dawn. So I like that aspect. And the reason I think it's really good for meta is it just annihilates Solgaleo EX. There's no shot we're going to be seeing a lot of Solgaleo EXs unless Flareon EX does not, in fact, become a meta deck. So that's all I'm going to say. Next up is Salazzle. They're like, I don't know, 50th copy of Salazzle. I'm going to be honest. I think it might be promising. When I first saw this, I thought it was a kind of a meme card. I was like, I don't understand it. However, check this out. You can play it with an, honestly, any type of deck list you want. It's the 0 retreat cost on this that makes it so fascinating. You could run it with an Infernape deck and Dawn, right? Because now you have 2 Pokemon that just retreat for free. So if this has an energy on it, tax on 40, you switch it out the following turn, and then you Dawn the energy that's on the Salazzle onto your Infernape and just wipe them out. So that's 140 plus 40. That's 180 damage across 2 turns. There are some decks that'll work with this. So I do think it is very, very promising. Next up is Vaporeon, and this is going to be a hot take. A hot take, you could put it in unclear, but I just don't think you play this, right? You know, I feel like it's so hard. I want to be very selective of what the cards I put in the don't category. Maybe if you are a player that likes flipping coins and potentially just removing all the energy from your opponent's active Pokemon, that's a card for you. Same with the Glaceon. If you're a player that likes to snipe the bench for 2 energy and only deal 50 damage, maybe run this with a Greninja deck, then Glaceon could be for you. But as of right now, it's a little unclear for me. Next up is the Vanillix. How do you pronounce this guy? Vanillix. And a lot of people would say this is in the don't category. Again, I want to be selective. I feel like there's only 2 or 3 cards potentially that are in the don't category. And I'm going to put it right here because it is a Gamba, right? So if you like flipping coins, this is the card for you. It's literally Marowak, but not an EX and a stage 2. Now let's talk about Primarina EX. I can't believe they actually gave this Pokemon love, to be honest. They were like, you know what? No, let's bring it. And I think it's going to be an insanely meta card. Not because it's by itself, but because of other cards we're going to talk about today. But this thing, Primarina EX, for 2 energy, you guys. First of all, for 1 energy, it might be the strongest EX off of 1 energy. Unless you consider Incineroar with the burn tech, right? This thing for 1 energy deals 40. For 2 energy, deals 80 damage, which is insane. So on curve, you can go 40 if you want. You can go 80 the next turn, and then the following turn, you can go 100. So let's just say you start with 2 energy on it. That's 80 into 100. That's 180. That's knocking out 90% of Pokemon in the game, probably even 95% to be honest. I think it's absolutely going to be a meta card. Next up is Galvantula, and I was a bit unclear about this. However, I do think I see a use case scenario with this card being double Dawns and Zero Auras or Magneton Magnezones, because this is a guaranteed paralysis, meaning they can't retreat unless there's something like Celesteela Ultra Beasts, right? And on top of that, you can just chip damage 70-70. That's 140, knock them out. You can knock out Darkrai. You can knock out a lot of Pokemon like that. So I think that this will actually see some play because of the control element that this card can bring decks, right? You can really just shut down other decks if they have no means of retreating, no Illimas, no Kogas, no Bounce, no Celesteela Ultra, nothing like that. This thing can just paralyze them. Guaranteed paralysis is busted. Even though it does lose the 2 energy, you can then just Dawn from your Magneton or your Zeraora. So I do think there are decks that will work very well with this. Next, let's talk about Sylveon EX. To be honest, I was going to put this in don't, maybe not. No, I'm just kidding. But with the other card that we're going to talk about, I think it's going to be an absolute meta card. Not because of just this card itself, but let's talk about it. Sylveon thins your deck for you, draws 2 cards. It's really good. You're like, but the issue I had with it is it's an EX Pokemon. It goes down to 1 shot from Sol Galeo EX. So why would I put this in the meta tier? Why? Why on earth would I do that? Well, that's because if you pair it with the non-EX Sylveon, it's insane. Let's just say you have 2 Sylveon EXs on your bench and you have the non-EX in the front line, you're dealing 100 damage. The max damage you can deal as long as you have 3 evolved Pokemon on your bench is 130 from a non-EX Pokemon. That is just insane. On top of that, you're drawing from your deck. You have access to things like Eevee Bag, Red. The damage output on a non-EX Sylveon is just, I think, entirely busted, right? And I'm very excited to explore that. And I think we might see some sort of meta relevancy, even maybe not with Sylveon EX, but just by itself. If you have evolved cards on your bench, a max output damage of 130. Let me rephrase it this way. It's Meowscarada for 2 energy into any Pokemon, regardless of them having an EX or not. However, you need at a max of 3 evolutions on your bench. So there is a trade-off there. I think there's going to be some playability with this card and decks. With that being said, honestly, you can probably throw an Espeon into that deck because that's just gonna furthermore make the Sylveon, the non-EX, the EX, and the Espeon work so well together. For 1 energy, this thing does 20 based on how many energies your opponent has. So another thing is you could just run Espeon and Stoutland and Tapu Lele, you know, a card that forces your opponent to say, hey, you need more energy in order to attack me with Stoutland's ability. Well, then if you have something like Espeon in the back line, oh my God, this is going to be such a good, fantastic control deck. Very excited to test that out. Which brings us to our next and final psychic type Pokemon. Okay, so I really think this is a don't, you guys, for a couple reasons. This is a coin flip. So even if you like playing Gamba, this to me is like Aerodactyl, the non-EX Aerodactyl. Would you really play that Pokemon? The colorless Rotom, the fan Rotom. Would you really play that Pokemon? Yes, their effects are fantastic, but 50% of the time you're doing absolutely nothing. 50% of the time you're doing absolutely nothing. I really don't think you play this at all. The effect is very strong. However, it's further limited by saying you could only choose your opponent's active Pokemon, right? So they can get around it by leaving something that's not good in the active spot. But there are going to be very small percentages of use case scenarios where you're going into like something like a Crimson Zard and you just knock them out for 2 energy if you flip a heads. But that's just not going to happen all the time, right? So if I have to put something in don't, as of right now, I think it's don't. But I guess you can make the argument, since it can be comboed with Acerola, into the unclear category, but I'm going to keep it here. Which brings us to the big boy himself, Dragonite meta. It doesn't matter what you guys think. I'm going to explain why I think Dragonite EX is going to be a meta relevant card for 2 reasons. I'll talk to you about the numbers first. This is literally this set's Crimson Zard. For 3 energy, we guarantee 180 on the board. We're knocking out literally more than 95% of Pokemon in the game. There's nothing that's going to survive outside of maybe a cape or a leaf cape or something like that. So Dragonite, just on paper, right? Regardless of mechanics and stuff and how we get the energy, insane. Okay. Second reason, it's Dragonite EX. Okay. Meta is defined regardless of really the win percentage, right? The win percentage matters, but the meta is defined by how often people want to play that card, right? If thousands of people are playing Dragonite, but then 50% are losing and 50% are winning because, you know, it depends on energy, dual energy, what you're actually getting and not breaking, it becomes a meta deck. That's how I view it, right? Is it better than other things? I don't know, but I think it's definitely going to be a meta deck. Plus, it's Dragonite EX. Let's be honest. Everyone who's watching this video, if you pull a Dragonite, or two, you're going to build a Dragonite EX deck list. I will be very impressed for that one or two people in the comments saying, no, I'll never build this deck. You guys don't know how to have fun. I'm sorry. But with that being said, check out my channel for the Dragonite deck list. Look at that shameless plug. Next up is Umbreon, and I think it's promising in decks like potentially Darkrai and Giratina. That's the first idea that I thought of. I was like, ooh, this could be a nice little addition, help counter other things, but I don't know. It needs a little bit more testing. I do think it's very promising, and I'm excited to see what other people can build with this Umbreon. Next up is Eevee EX. That's absolutely going into the meta deck list, not because of Eevee EX itself, but because of, you know, Sylveon, Espeon, the other Sylveon, Flareons. I feel like just having a bulkier Eevee that can evolve into a non-EX or EX is pretty valuable. So that's just going to go into so many Eeveelution decks, right? Already. Next is Snorlax, and if you watched my other video where I reviewed the cards, I said Snorlax is very, very, very bad. However, I'm actually changing it because upon testing, boy, is promising. I don't want to give too much away because I actually plan on climbing ranked tomorrow when it comes out. I think it's coming out tomorrow. I'm trying to hit Masters day one, especially with the new systems. I want to see how it works, and I think Snorlax might actually help me get there. All I'm gonna say is we're gonna use things like Ilima and some other older cards from older sets. Now it's time for leftovers. A lot of people are saying it's not good because it's only 10 at the end of your turn. I think it's promising for a couple reasons. It's at the end of your turn, which means I think people are not understanding like what it actually entails. By itself, leftovers is trash, right? It turns a potion into a +30, right? For that turn. It turns an Erica into a +60. It turns a Lily into a +70, right? Because you get 60 end your turn. So that extra 10 might get you out of breakpoints where in other cases you might just get knocked out and lose. Specifically, I'm thinking like Steamzard. There are so many times where I am just at the exact health where something like a Rampardos can come in and knock me out, right? However, if I had a leftovers that at the end of my turn, even after using Lily, took me from 130 to 140 and they don't have something like a Giovanni or whatever, we would survive that and end up winning the whole game, right? So I think it's a promising card. Next up is the Eevee bag, which is the crown rare, which is, I guess if you guys didn't watch my pulls today, let me flex again real quick. In the same 10-pack opening, I pulled a crown Eevee bag, and 2 packs later pulled another one. So I'm fully set there. If you guys are missing your crown rares, it might be because I got them all. I'm sorry. But I think this is going to be a meta card, especially in the current meta of Eeveelutions. I don't think this stays a meta relevant card in new sets coming out, but as of right now, we're going to put it right here. And that brings us to our first supporter card, 110%, 200%. Hey, you, however you pronounce his name, this character, this supporter card is insane. Primarina, Decadui, Incineroar EX, all the EXs get a +30 of damage upon using this card. I think this is fantastic for all of them. First of all, your Owl and your Sea Lion can deal up to, what is it, 110 damage? Just off rip. No extra effects for only 2 energy using this card. The thing I love about this is Incineroar EX for 1 energy can deal 80 damage with this card. You're doing your 30 + 20 with burn +30. It's crazy. It's actually insane. Incineroar, oh my god, Incineroar is eating this meta. It's fantastic. Which brings us to the final card in today's deck. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, you don't want to play this. This is absolutely garbage. Listen, I got so excited. I got so lucky today. So I was playing Penny over and over and over again. 4 games in a row, Penny pulls the opponent's Professor Oak. So I was convinced it's mechanically wired to only pull cards that'll work. And I was like, oh my god, that's busted. That's so good. How do you not play 2 Pennies and 2 Oaks and then have 4 Oaks in your deck? Turns out I was just getting lucky by pulling my opponent's Oaks. I tested it out with the community members in Discord. Thank you guys for helping me out with that. We built a deck list with was it 2 Oaks, 1 Snorlax, and the rest of the supporters are supporter cards that need activation conditions like Misty, Cyrus, and they pull those cards and it just says, hey, yeah, we can't use that. They're like, so Penny sucks. That's pretty much it. I don't think people are going to play Penny unless they're trolling. It's not unclear. I think it's a doe. And this is my day one tier list for the cards and also the deck list. If you guys want to see more of the deck list that I talked about in this tier list, subscribe so that way you don't miss out on those videos when they publish. Thank you.